right, you guys are gonna have to give me a little bit of credit for this one. I spent an extra minute trying to come up with a really fancy name for some hip mobility and some stretches you guys can incorporate to your weekly routine that'll help you loosen up your hips, maybe relieve some lower back tightness. Welcome to what I call the perching prescription. Perching meaning you're sitting on your booty a lot. Nowadays, a lot of us are sitting in our desk chairs, working hard, or sitting on our phones, typing it out, or maybe even, this is how this video was inspired, a little road trip, actually a big road trip that we went on, sitting in the car, driving along, really just being on your booty all day. Hopefully this little circuit that I give you guys gives you some really simple options on how to move your hips and just loosen up some muscles so we feel a little bit better throughout daily life. Now, it's gonna start here on a 30-inch box. You guys are gonna throw one leg up, and we're gonna get 1 minute of box pigeon on each side. Stick around, I'm gonna go in depth on some of these movements, but we're gonna go 1 minute on one side, 1 minute on the other side. Then I'm gonna make my way down to the floor. These are really, really sneaky challenging. You're gonna do a set of hip 90-90s, about 10 reps, letting each knee fall to those 90-degree angles, butterfly those legs out, and then rotate to the other side, just kind of flowing back and forth. After you get through 10 hip 90-90s, you're gonna make your way over to the wall where we're gonna stretch our hip flexors with some couch stretching. You're gonna bend one knee back up to the wall, so I can start feeling that stretch through my quad and hang out here for a minute on one side. We'll switch, get a minute on the other side, and last thing will be back on the floor in a quadruped position, meaning on your hands and knees, and we'll go pause fire hydrants. I pick that knee up, straight to the outside, fire up that glute a little bit, hold for a second at the top. I'll go 5 on one side, 5 on the other side. What I'm simply doing through this little hip circuit is stretching, moving. Mobility can take us so far, and most of us need more and more mobility, but after we get those loose muscles and get more mobility, let's try to use those muscles the correct way with some of these exercises. Let's go into depth a little bit on these different stretches and exercises. Here is my 30-inch box. Box pigeon is always one of my go-tos. I get really tight hips personally from all the squatting and hinging that we do here in the gym. You gotta keep these muscles just as loose and your joints just as mobile as much as you're working them to keep them strong. So box pigeon is always one of my go-tos. You're gonna swing one leg up and make sure you make a 90-degree angle with your front leg. The mistake I see a lot with box pigeon is folks tuck in that leg too far and they're not getting the stretch through their hips. So we gotta keep space between my heel and my belly as I make that 90-degree angle. I'm gonna try to let gravity do as much work as it can, let my knee fall to the box or as close as it can get, and then I'll start feeling a stretch through my glute. If you guys are super flexible and feeling really good on this stretch, what you can do is flatten out your back and start leaning over that front leg. That'll intensify that stretch a little bit more. 1 minute on each side there. All right, moving down to the ground, that second exercise was called hip 90-90s because my legs are gonna fall into two 90-degree angles. I'm gonna be working on stretching that hip just a little bit more on the outside, but a lot of us will actually start feeling our hip in the internal rotation side and maybe find a little bit of a stopping point with that back hip. So let's walk through it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start with our feet flat to the ground and in somewhat of our squat stance. We don't want them too narrow, not too wide, right outside of our hips in your squat stance, and that should get us falling into the right spot. What I'm gonna do is either put my hands behind me and stretch my torso tall, maintaining my posture, or I'm gonna hold my hands up tall in front of my chest. Biggest thing is that I'm not getting all slouchy. I'm trying to sit up tall, so if I need to put my hands behind me, that's okay. I'm gonna start by letting my knees fall to the left side. I'm not gonna force my legs any farther than what they wanna go. I'm gonna let gravity do some work and just make it a little bit more passive. I'm gonna hold that spot for a second, and then what I'm gonna do next as I rotate to the other side is butterfly my legs all the way out and try to get as much range of motion through my hips as possible as I flip to the other side. And this one's feeling really tight, really snug today. So hopefully as we're working through 10 of these reps, it starts feeling a little bit looser. And while you're doing this, to imagine what your hip joint looks like. It's a big ball and socket joint. And the more we can get that ball and socket moving freely and not get all tightened up by these big, strong muscles that we have, the better off we're gonna feel, the more range of motion we're gonna have, our lifts are gonna get better, our mobility is gonna be great, and Blitz must love these. Why do you have a leaf on your back, buddy? Because he came and joined the party. If you guys are really struggling with this exercise, I brought over a 45-pound plate, and you guys can sit on top of that 45-pound plate and do the same exact thing. We're just at a little bit more elevated surface so you can get to that range of motion that you want. Okay, team, now we're at the wall, and we're gonna do another go-to stretch that helps my quads and my hip flexors. If you think about how you're sitting at your desk or sitting in your car, it's a lot of this. These hip flexors are shortened. My quads are not working, and they can get really tight if I'm even just an athlete doing some strength work. So if we can keep these guys loose and stretch out these hip flexors, you're gonna be feeling really good. I have a pad here, just an ab mat, and then a PVC because I'm gonna show you guys 2 ways to do this. We're gonna start by bending one knee back up to the wall. Really try to encourage people not to start too close to the wall, because what we want to do is try to open your hip all the way as far as we can go before we make the stretch more challenging, which would mean scooting my knee into the wall. So a little bit of space between my knee and the wall, and what I'm going to do is just keep my hands on the ground as I'm in this forward lunge, and think about pressing my hip to my hands. That'll help me open up my back hip flexor. I might feel a good stretch to that top part of my quad. I like to do a minute here with my hands on the ground, and then I'll switch and do the other side with a minute with my hands on the ground. When I come back around for maybe a second trip through the stations, I'll switch up this couch stretch to sit up a little bit taller. That's why I have this PVC here. I'll put my PVC on the ground where my hands were, and instead of thinking of pressing my back hip to the ground, I'll think about holding my posture and then pushing my back hip forward to the opposite wall. All right, last station we'll hit in our circuit is gonna be fire hydrant. And I wanted to get Blitz in the shot because it was only appropriate that we did fire hydrants next to our nice little puppy dog right here. Ooh, look at that tail. We need to make sure we're using all of these smaller muscles that assist the bigger muscles when we're doing all of the fancy tricks that we do. Those small muscles are those little stability muscles that are so important for taking care of my joints, holding them in the right places. You gotta give these little muscles some love. When we start teaching our muscles how to work and fire properly, it's gonna move my joints in a really strong, effective way. So fire hydrants are an easy way to start getting those hips fired up. I'm gonna be in this quadruped position. I'm gonna focus on keeping my midline super tight and try not to wiggle side to side or lean side to side, and then pick my knee up straight to the outside as high as it can go. Even if it's just a little bit today, guys, that's perfect. As you get more mobile through your hips, you will be able to lift that knee higher, but we'll lift, hold for a split second, and then come back down. Like I said, I'm trying not to wiggle side to side. I'm just holding for a quick second and then relaxing. I like to do 5 on one side and then switch, 5 on the other side. Usually this right hip is the one that gives me a little bit of trouble. I can feel my hip flexor pinching a little bit. That guy always needs some extra love from me through all of this stuff. Some good work is going through those 4 stations twice. Some really great work, if you have some extra time on your hands, is going through it 3 times. Hopefully that gives you guys some simple, easy exercises to do. Maybe at the end of the day, you can do it, all of this at home. That's literally called couch stretch. You can do pigeon on your throw your leg up on the bed or a chair and then try to hit those exercises. Guys, I know this isn't the fancy stuff, but I promise these little efforts go a really long way. So I hope you guys like this little circuit. Let me know. Don't forget, if you like these videos, to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later for more fun stuff. Peace out.